the unexpected visitor in the shadowed valleys of Eldoria, where ancient mountains pierced the sky like jagged spears, lived a reclusive healer named Iman. He was no ordinary man. Once a soldier in the great wars that had scarred the land, he had turned his back on violence after witnessing too much death. Now, in his modest cabin nestled at the edge of the whispering forest, he tended to herbs, brewed potions, and mended the wounds of travelers foolish enough to venture into the wilds. Iman was human, through and through, stubborn, resourceful, and possessed of that unyielding spirit that had allowed his kind to survive in a world dominated by mythical beasts and arcane forces. The dragons of Eldoria were legends unto themselves. Majestic creatures of fire and scale, they ruled the skies and hoarded secrets older than time. Humans feared them, revered them, and mostly avoided them. Wars had been fought over dragon territories, and entire kingdoms had fallen to their wrath. But dragons, too, had their vulnerabilities. They were not invincible, especially the young ones, whose scales were soft and whose flames were but flickering embers. It was on a stormy autumn night that destiny knocked horror, crashed upon Iman's door. The wind howled like a banshee, and rain lashed the thatched roof of his cabin. Iman was stirring a pot of healing salve over the fire when a thunderous roar shook the foundations of his home. He grabbed his staff, more out of habit than bravery, peered out into the tempest. There, in the muddied clearing before his cabin, stood a colossal dragon. Her scales were a deep crimson, shimmering even in the downpour, marred by scars from battles long past. Her wings, vast as sails, were folded protectively around something small and whimpering. Smoke curled from her nostrils, and her golden eyes glowed with a mixture of desperation and fury. In her massive claws, she cradled a tiny dragonling larger than a pony, its body limp. One wing torn and bleeding profusely from what looked like a hunter's arrow wound. The mother dragon's gaze locked onto Iman, and in that moment, he felt the weight of an ancient intelligence assessing him. Human, her voice rumbled like an earthquake, echoing not just in the air, but in his mind. Telepathy, he realized the dragon's gift. My hatchling fades. The wound festers with poison. Your kind's arrows did this. Heal him, or I burn your world to ash. Iman's heart pounded. He had heard tales of dragons seeking aid from humans, but those were myths, bedtime stories to frighten children. Yet here she was, Seraphina, the Crimson Matriarch, as the old scrolls named her. He could see the exhaustion in her posture, the way her breath came in ragged bursts. Dragons didn't beg. They commanded, but this was no command. It was a plea wrapped in threat. Swallowing his fear, Iman stepped forward, rain soaking his cloak. I am no enemy to your kind, he said steadily, though his voice trembled. Bring the little one inside. I'll do what I can. Seraphina hesitated, her eyes narrowing. Humans were treacherous. She knew poachers, thieves, warmongers. But her hatchling, her precious thorn, was dying. With a guttural growl, she lowered her head and gently placed the dragonling at Iman's feet before retreating a few paces. Her massive form coiled like a spring ready to strike. Iman knelt, examining the wound. The arrow had pierced deep, and black veins spiderwebbed from the sight dragonbane poison, a rare toxin crafted by human alchemists to fell these beasts. The dragonling's breaths were shallow, its emerald eyes fluttering. Time was short. As he carried Thorn inside, Iman's mind raced. He had treated wounds before, but never on a dragon. Still, biology was biology. Flesh, blood, and spirit. He laid the creature on his table, lit more candles, and began his work. First, he brewed a counter potion from mandrake root and silverleaf, herbs known to neutralize poisons. As he applied a poultice, Thorn whimpered, and outside Seraphine's roar shook the trees. Hours passed. Iman worked tirelessly, drawing on every scrap of knowledge from his soldier days and his herbalist life. He whispered encouragements to the dragonling, not knowing if it understood. Fight, little one. Your mother's waiting? By dawn, the black veins receded and Thorn's breathing steadied. But the wing was mangled. It would need more than herbs to mend. Seraphina watched from the window, her rage tempered by reluctant gratitude. This human was different, methodical, compassionate. Perhaps not all of his kind were monsters. The bond forged in fire with the immediate danger past. Eamon faced a new challenge: the dragonling's recovery. Thorn couldn't fly, and Seraphina couldn't stay hidden near human lands without drawing hunters. Reluctantly, she entrusted her child to Eamon's care, vowing to return when the moon was full. "Protect him, healer," she mind-spoke, her voice laced with warning, "or no mountain will hide you from my fury." With a beat of her wings that uprooted trees, she vanished into the clouds. Eamon transformed his cabin into a sanctuary. He fashioned a splint for Thorn's wing from sturdy oak, and enchanted vines that glowed with faint magic remnants of his wartime spoils. The dragon, lean, curious, and playful despite his injury, explored the space with wobbly steps. At first, Thorn hissed at Eamon, flames licking from his maw. But humans have a way with persistence. Eamon shared his meals, roasted meats and fruits, and sang old lullabies from his village. Slowly, trust bloomed. As days turned to weeks, Eamon delved deeper into dragon lore. He pored over forbidden tomes, smuggled from ruined libraries, learning that dragons bonded through shared essence, blood, or fire. When Thorn's fever returned one night, Eamon made a fateful choice. He pricked his finger and mixed his blood with a healing elixir, feeding it to the dragonling. "If this saves you, it's worth the risk," he muttered. The effect was profound. Thorn's eyes brightened, and a warmth spread through Eamon, connection, like threads of fate intertwining. He began to sense Thorn's emotions: hunger, pain, joy. In return, Thorn shared visions, memories of soaring skies, ancient dragon councils, and the encroaching threat of human expansion into dragon realms. Eamon learned of the Great Rift, a prophecy foretelling a war that would shatter the world unless bridged by an unlikely alliance. But danger lurked. Word of a tamed dragon spread through nearby villages. Hunters came, led by Lord Varric, a ruthless noble who coveted dragon scales for armor. One moonless night, they attacked Eamon's cabin, arrows flying and swords drawn. Eamon fought back with his staff and traps, but he was outnumbered. Thorn, though wounded, roared a tiny echo of his mother's might and unleashed a burst of flame that scorched the attackers. Eamon, drawing on the bond, felt strength surge through him. His movements quickened, his strikes precise. Together, they repelled the assault, but not without cost. Eamon took a blade to the shoulder, and Thorn's wing reopened. In the aftermath, as Eamon bandaged himself, Thorn nuzzled him, a soft purr rumbling. "You're more than a beast," Eamon whispered. "You're family now." The bond had awakened something in both. Eamon gained glimpses of draconic magic, healing faster than any human should. While Thorn's scales hardened with human resilience, Seraphina returned under the full moon, her eyes widening at the sight. She sensed the bond immediately. "You have mingled essences," she mind-spoke, awe mixing with suspicion. "This is forbidden, yet it has saved him." She inspected Thorn, who bounded to her with renewed vigor. But instead of taking him away, she lingered. "The prophecy speaks of a bridge between scales and skin. Perhaps you are it, human." Destiny rewritten news of the bond spread like wildfire through both worlds. Dragons whispered of a human who healed instead of hunted, while humans spoke of Eamon the dragon friend, a hero or traitor depending on the teller. Lord Varric, humiliated, rallied an army to slay the beasts and their pet human, the dragons. Sensing war, gathered under Seraphin's lead, preparing to raise human kingdoms. Eamon, now riding Thorn, who had grown swiftly thanks to the bond, journeyed to the Dragon Spire, the heart of dragon territory. There, in a cavern of crystal and flame, he stood before the Elder Council. Ancient Wyrms eyed him warily, their minds probing his. "Why should we trust a flea like you?" One bellowed. Drawing on the bond, Eamon shared visions, human innovations, forges, alliances that could aid dragons. "We don't have to destroy each other," he argued. "Together, we can face greater threats." He revealed knowledge from Thorn's memories, a dark force, the voidlings, ancient entities awakening to consume all life. Divided, neither race could stand. United, they might prevail. Seraphina vouched for him, and Thorn demonstrated their bond by channeling Eamon's ingenuity into a spell that mended an elder's cracked scale. Impressed, the council agreed to a truce. Eamon returned to human lands, Thorn at his side, and confronted Lord Varric's forces at the Battle of Rift Valley. The clash was epic. Dragons soared overhead, their flames precise under Eamon's guidance via the bond. Humans, inspired by Eamon's courage, defected in droves, turning the tide. Varric fell, not to fire, but to his own men's rebellion. In the end, Eamon stood atop a hill, Thorn perched beside him. His representatives from both sides signed the Accord of Scales, a pact of mutual aid. Years later, the bond's legacy endured. Eamon, ageless from draconic essence, became the first dragon rider, fostering hybrids of human wit and dragon might. The voidlings were repelled in a grand alliance, and Eldoria flourished. What began as a desperate mother's plea had rewritten destiny. Humans once feared as destroyers proved to be saviors through compassion and ingenuity. In the annals of HFY, Eamon's tale endures a testament that when humanity says, "fuck yeah" to empathy, even dragons bow in respect.